to abandon the faith, apostasy. You believe that? How can you say that this is a tolerant religion?
Well, I think that one needs to appreciate that the word Islam is derived from the root word istislam, which means submission. Therefore, the Muslim is the one who submits entirely to the Sharia, the divine law of God. Hence, toleration is something which is, if you like, defined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God. Therefore, if something is in accordance with the Sharia, we tolerate it. If it is outside of the Sharia, we cannot tolerate it. Hence, for example, Islam will tolerate non-Muslims who live among the Muslims within the Sharia under an Islamic state. Their life, wealth, their honor, their dignity will be protected. They will get the basic needs of food, clothing and shelter. But at the end of the day, we cannot tolerate adultery, fornication, we cannot tolerate apostasy, not because this is from our own whims and desires, but this is enshrined within the Quran and the Sunnah of the Messenger Muhammad.
So what should happen to an adulterer?
Well, the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that, as narrated in the Quran, that the one who commits adultery, he will be stoned to death, and the one who commits fornication, who's not married, they will get 100 lashes, and that will be done publicly. And for your information, if you look in the history of Islam, there were, for example, only about 60 reported rapes when the Sharia was implemented. There were only about 120 hands ever cut. So it is not only a harsh punishment which is fitting, but it is also a great deterrent within society, and it will rid society of many of the ills
Britain would be a better
that we
place.
have. I believe that Britain would never be better than when the Sharia has been implemented.
I don't know.
Sorry, Anjem. First of all, your Arabic was wrong. The root word for Islam is not Islam, it's Salima. I assume you don't speak Arabic. Secondly, it's not in the Quran that you have to stone to death. That's also wrong. I don't know where you learned Islam from, Anjem. It's probably from Umar Bakr Muhammad. But I'd just like to say that all religions...
Is there stuff in the book? Is it in the Quran?
All religions...
One second, let's see what it says.
I'd just like to say something here, that aside from his terrible Arabic, all religions are what their followers make them. And that depends upon the vast majority of the followers of a faith, whether it's Christianity, Islam or Judaism. No one religion should be singled out to say that this particular religion is intolerant. In the medieval period, Pope Urban II launched the Crusades in the name of God. And today we have people like Anjem speaking the way he just did. I think the difference is that the problem today happens to be that many Muslims have subscribed to something we call Islamism, whereby they believe Islam is a political ideology that must be forced upon people in their preference is at the end of a sword.
Is he a real Muslim?
Well, can I just
say, a real Muslim?
In the Quran, Allah said, He said, whatever the Prophet brought, take it. Whatever he left, leave it. So everything is enshrined within the Quran, which is explained by the Sunnah of the Prophet's sayings, actions, consent. But can I just say that, the lady there is not the only one from the Council of Ex-Muslims. Majid Nawaz is a well-known sellout, and he's a non-Muslim, he's a Catholic. So I think that you need to have Muslims to talk about Islam.
What's the punishment? What's the punishment in hell? What's the punishment in hell?
You cannot ally with the American and British establishment.
What's the punishment waiting for him? What's the punishment waiting for him in hell?
Well, he will be in the hellfire. But the point is that he needs to retake his shahada.
What would you do to me, Anjem?
Let's talk in a minute about apostasy.
I'd rather make mistakes from Arabic than leave the deen of al-Islam like Majid Nawaz.
Now, Douglas Murray, is there a problem actually in the Holy Book, in the faith, or is the problem in some of those, like this gentleman and their interpretation of it?
Well, we're very lucky that most Muslims don't think anything like Anjem Choudry, or we'd really be in trouble. Most Muslims, both in Britain and across the world, are law-abiding, decent people for whom their faith is an important part of their lives. However, there is an awkward thing about Islam, which is that Islam's religion, its founder, was a more violent man than, for instance, the founder of Christianity. I'd give you an example. I mean, if Christ, I'm not a Christian, but I have no truck in this thing, but if Christ had been a warrior, had killed people he captured, Christianity's history would be even more violent than it has been. I'd give you one other example. When a woman is brought in adultery to Jesus, he says, he who's without sin casts the first stone. When Muhammad has a woman brought in adultery to him, he orders her to be stoned. This would be a very different outcome. Now, fortunately, as I say, there's no doubt about this, about the nature of Muhammad as a beginner of a religion. There's no doubt about that, but there is also no doubt about the fact, as I say, that most Muslims don't behave in that way. Because religion is open.
Sorry, Douglas, that's untrue. It's untrue. You've deliberately picked on one example, and that is Jesus Christ, the prophet of God. Before that, there were many other prophets that Christians also believe in, such as the prophets of the Old Testament, who launched wars, who were kings, King Solomon, King David. Hold on, Douglas, I'm making a point here, which is that prophets during those times, some of them fought, some of them didn't fight, some of them it's disputed whether they fought. The point is that all religions are interpreted. We can't say here that Islam is one thing or another.
But Jesus' message was very clear. He never said to stone anyone to death, Jesus, did he?
I think it's disputed, even the fact that the Prophet Muhammad stoned people to death. That's not a fact. That's not a fact.
But yeah, you can admit it. Harris Rafiq.
Yeah, wow, 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 wow. Did those fireworks, they were flying fast, furious, and fiery. Anjem Choudry was he just basically laid it out. There's no black and white, right? There's no gray. There's no gray area there. It is black and white with him. This is the way it's going to be. We want a theocratic state. We want the kingdom of Islam to be the dominant religion in the whole world. We want to start it off here in the British Empire and expand from there. That's exactly what we're looking at, a theocratic state, and everybody will be subjugated to that, whether they're Christians or atheists or Jews or Hindus or whatever. And it is that theocratic state, that caliphate, that they're talking about establishing here, where there will be no separation of church and state. Because one thing in Islam, there is no separation of church and state. So if an Islamic government, and there's 50 plus nations right now, I believe, that are Muslim, maybe slightly more, but they are Muslim majority nations. If they want an Islamic form of government, if they want to be a political form of Islam, if they want to be theocratic, if they don't want the separation of church and state, that's up to them, because the people have decided to vote in that direction. If they want to implement Sharia, they can. And I'll tell you, the implementation of Sharia, it is different from one Muslim country to another Muslim country. Something that would be considered to be against a religion in one country is perfectly fine in another country. I mean, for example, it's Sharia law in Saudi Arabia for a time being was women couldn't drive. Now tell me, was there any motor vehicles during the time of the ancient prophets? Of course not. Where did this come from? It was a man-made law, cultural. The Arabs, the men didn't want their women driving. Somebody put it in the religious format and said that's Sharia law. Nowhere else is that found, but it is Sharia law, or was Sharia law a part of the Saudi kingdom until just recently, where women were given the allowance to drive now. So what's happening is that you have interpretation, you have doctrine that is coming from the scriptures, and then you have people, holy men, saints, Sufis, that are putting their own interpretation into it, and now you have an amalgamation of something that either somebody is saying that this we believe is completely divine scripture, it is apart from any man-made interpretation, or this is part from what God has said, but a man has said something inside here, or a jurisprudence scholar has, interpreted it this way, and this is the direction we're going in, and another Muslim state says we're going to go in another direction. That's all fine and good. But getting back to the thing is that we cannot allow a theocratic Islamist state to take foot in Western Europe or on the shores of the United States of America or any place else, especially in countries that are not Muslim. They're Judeo-Christian or Western European. They've got that Judeo-Christian philosophy from which they sprung forth. Those, Anjem Choudry wants to wipe those out. That's Islamist thinking, complete, and needs to be, just absolutely needs to be challenged in every way, shape, and form. He can voice those opinions, that's perfectly fine. He's allowed to do that, his freedom of speech rights. But when it comes to action, if he starts to propagate those through joining with terrorist organizations of which he has been a part of, aid and comfort to terrorist organizations, that's where it needs to be silenced, that's where it needs to be stopped, that's where he needs to be told. If you continue in this regard, there will be repercussions, jail time, or you cannot just go about spouting this kind, of hatred, this kind of Islamism that can lead, to certain types of action, which would lead to harm to the society at large. Anyways, folks, this is what we have on tap for you today. You're watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I'm your host, Dr. Nasir, where I give you my political prescription from my political perspective of what's happening when people like Anjem Choudry come together face to face with other people from Britain, with Douglas Murray, Majid Nawaz. So you've got social media, you've got culture, you've got religion, you've got politics, you've got government, you've got policy, all come crashing together. Let's get back to the debate right now.
The Prophet ordered people to be stoned to death.
Right, okay. That case itself was where the woman insisted that she had punishment. There was one case where the woman was stoned, and that was when she came to the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, and said, I have committed adultery. The Prophet, peace upon him, turned his face away. She asked him again, I've committed adultery. Only when she asked the third time for a punishment was the punishment insisted on. That is the only
Should he
case.
not have still said no?
I beg your pardon?
Should he not have still said no?
No, she insisted that she be punished. But coming back to the original point, in terms of Sharia, first of all, there is nothing in the British law that actually prevents me from practicing my faith. So there's no need for Sharia law in this country. And secondly, there's nothing. And secondly, the other thing is there is no compulsion in Islam. In terms of Anjem classifying myself or Majid or anybody else as they're not Muslim.
Sharia, then maybe we could call you a Muslim.
Well, at the end of the day, there are three things that make up a Muslim: Islam and Iman. And from that we get the Sharia. There's the other thing that Anjem seems to be forgetting about. That is tasawwuf, the state of ihsan, being a better human being, worshipping your Lord as if you can see him. Because even if you can't, he can see you. That's how you treat your labours, the spirit of the Lord.
Okay, what is the problem? Mariam, you abandoned your faith. Mariam, you're an ex-Muslim.
Atheist now, but I think this question is wrong, and this is exactly the reason why. The problem is you can find intolerance in every religion, including in Islam, but the reason Islam is such a focus today is because it is the banner of a political movement, and that's where we need to put the finger on. Anjem Choudary represents that political movement that actually, it's not a question of, he's an
He represents that theocratic movement that I talked about, the establishment of Islamic caliphate, an Islamic kingdom for the entire world, political, theocratic.
Tolerant man, we can just ignore him. The problem is that this movement makes laws. It actually stones people to death in the 21st century. It hangs 16-year-olds for acts incompatible with chastity. It denies women the right to divorce, to child custody. It imposes sexual apartheid on millions of people. We have to make a distinction between
So it's not to do with Islam, it's to do with people like him.
It is. It's the political Islamic movement. And actually, the first victims and the first front of resistance against this movement are people who are either Muslims or being labeled as such. So he's the problem. The political Islamic movement is the problem.
The point that people say that you can be a gay Muslim, you can be a political Muslim, you can be a radical Muslim. There's only something called a Muslim. The Muslim is the one who practices a religion and he believes in Islam and he accepts all religion. The other thing I would say is it's very rich of Douglas Murray to talk about a religion being the Islamic religion being violent when he believes in the occupation of Palestine. He's the one who supported the American government in their campaign in Iraq and Afghanistan.
You are a very political animal, aren't you?
The point is Islam has something to say about everything in our life, including what people like Douglas Murray and the Salah Majid Nawaz have to say.
Okay, Ankraya, frankly, the image problem that Islam has with some people in this country, is he actually the problem?
Yes, I'm afraid to say
people like him.
Mr. Choudry is the problem because I have 20% of my constituents are Muslims, and of those 20%, I would say the vast majority have very similar views to myself and other friends here today. They are tolerant and they don't take the views of Mr. Choudry. Unfortunately, the ones with the biggest mouths in Keighley are the ones that get listened to, and I'm not even saying that they are like Mr. Choudry, but they do have fairly intolerant views.
So a lady who came up there, the MP from, I believe the district Keighley or the city Keighley, she said that 20% of her constituency, was Muslim. And like she said, the majority, hardworking, going to work in the morning, getting their kids off to school, trying to put, food on the table, put some money away, send their kids to college, get them married, have grandkids, celebrate, what they need to celebrate in their religion, and just and be part of the community. And basically, that's it. Be a good Britisher. Do what you're supposed to be doing, and not being and not getting into these type of situations, or trying to have that mentality that you're superior, that the religion is superior. And that could be said of any religious faith or any ethnic faith. That's not what we want. We want to live harmoniously together with our friends, neighbors, and our community. Sure, we're going to have differences of opinion, differences in food, differences in what we eat, obviously, differences in thought, differences in, obviously, religion, political, all that. But you know what? At the end of the day, we are part of one nation. And although it is very difficult to sometimes put those things aside, the question being is that it should never come to a point of where you're elevating whatever it is that you believe to be forced upon the rest of society. You want to do it in your own home, you want to practice whatever it is you want to practice in your own home without doing something illegal, go ahead and do it. But don't force that or expect that belief to be upheld or to be done or to be accepted in somebody else's home if they don't want to do it that way. Anyways, folks, we appreciate you taking the time to watch. You've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I've been your host. My name is Dr. Nasir. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, like, share, and follow us. You all know what to do. Share your comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Check out our other video links above and below. My final thought, as always, when you're right, you're right, and when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, take care and stay safe.